Saturday Night Live did a sketch about one of my college professors. It was in 2014 when Lena Dunham hosted. I'm going to start with the complimentary part of this story because later I got to talk about the concept of cringe and critique the artwork of a person that I know. Maybe not super well, but I know her all the same, and that makes this weird. In my last video, I mentioned I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. This was from 2006 to 2010, and one of the courses I took in 2009 was called Music and Politics. I took studio courses on stuff like video, sound, performance, comics, writing, and obviously all that stuff helps me do this now. But also I took a ton of academic courses that also helped me do this. I took courses with titles like Hip Hop History, Punk 101, Dangerous Ideas, Black Power Fantasies, Film Comedy, Race Films, Road Movies, Comics as Literature. A course titled Music and Politics was an easy sell to a guy like me. My mother is a retired journalist and my father is a retired DJ. I grew up on music and politics. My instructor for music and politics was a woman named Janice Misurell-Mitchell. She's an accomplished avant-garde flautist and an incredibly knowledgeable music historian. I learned about some really cool stuff in her class, but the two things that stuck with me the most were a German opera from 1930 called The Rise and Fall of the City of Mahagonny by Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht. Banned by the Nazis in 1933, the City of Mahagonny is an American town started by criminals in the middle of nowhere where anything goes, and a group of lumberjacks who proceed to drink, eat, fight, and fuck themselves into ruin. It pretty much predicted Las Vegas the year before Las Vegas legalized gambling. You might also know it from this song, which was famously covered by The Doors.
Show me the way to the next whiskey bar.
But what stuck with me even more all these years later is the 1986 music video for Honky Tonk Bud.
Well, old Honky Tonk Bud, the hip cat stud, he stood watching a game of pool.
An old jailhouse poem about a street hustler who sells dope to an undercover FBI agent, and then all his hustler friends come to see his fate in court.
There was Sweet Draws Lucy, looking all juicy, half-head and stumble Joe Blue. Wimpy the grinner, the good trick finner, stick pin and tough titty suit. There was Jojo the rabbit, the hustler's girl's habit, who was out trying to get him some more. Brennis Lane and Player Kane come barging through the door.
Composer Edward Wilkerson, narrator John Tollsby, and director Scott Laster adapted this story into a visually rich 10-minute version of Dick Tracy for Black people. Learning and reciting these street poems was an undertaking unto itself back in the day. Rudy Ray Moore made a career of it, including a rendition of Honky Tonk Bud. But to see it realized in this way, so vividly, it's like seeing the artwork of Tony Bright Davis brought to life. Look him up. He's dope. Did I respond to everything in the class this enthusiastically? I mean, not always. I remember we watched Led Zeppelin's The Song Remains the Same in its entirety, and I'm still not sure why. After she showed us Honky Tonk Bud, along with some other stuff I was more familiar with, like Queen Latifah's Ladies First, I shared a couple pieces of 80s hip-hop history with the class myself. Children's Story by Slick Rick because of the similar criminal downfall story it tells to Honky Tonk Bud, and a 1985 rap battle between Busy B. Starsky and Roxanne Shante in response to Ladies First, because Roxanne clearly beats Busy B. However, because of his status in hip-hop at that time and the fact that Roxanne was younger and a woman, they undeservedly gave Busy B the win.
That's right. Telling you something, get it together. The hat you wearing this ain't even leather. You wanna play games and you wanna get loose? Well, we all know who got the juice.
Okay, that's it. That's it.
I remember Janice really responding positively to both of these, but it was at that point that I had to take a mental note that although Janice's musical knowledge was vast and varied and she loved hip-hop, her knowledge of hip-hop was somewhat limited. But enough stalling, we gotta talk about Janice's piece now. I've established that she had good taste and that she showed us some great stuff. To come back to Honky Tonk Bud, it's this seamless fusion of jazz and hip-hop. For 1986, it feels like an intersection of where the culture had been and where it was headed. It was totally outlandish, but in a way that feels natural and lived in, because the people that made it are not only masters of their craft, they were part of the community that this music comes from. And this kind of fusion and delivery would clearly have an impact on Janice's own work, but if you're not already aware, Janice is a white baby boomer lady, so when she does it, it comes out like this.
Rhyming, timing, Rhyming, timing gotta keep up, the timing gotta keep up, the sound gotta keep up the impression that you're getting around.
This is Skat Rap Counterpoint, a 10-minute long thing from 1995 where Janice raps and scats about art process stuff and plays the flute for what feels like an eternity. When I tell my friends this story, I usually try to see how much of the video we can actually finish because it's a tall order. One of the things I learned about in art school was endurance art that the artist has to struggle with for an extended period of time. My favorite in this genre is Taiwanese artist Ching Se. He did stuff like shave his head and take a picture of himself every hour on the hour for a year with his hair growth showing the passage of time. Or he'd spend a whole year outside and then another whole year in a cage. But sometimes the endurance part is on the audience, like Andy Warhol's Empire, an 8-hour-long slow-motion static shot of the Empire State Building. That's the kind of endurance piece that Skat Rap Counterpoint can be for some people. Skat Rap Counterpoint was posted on the CRINGE subreddit the summer before the SNL episode aired, so I'm guessing that's where whoever wrote the sketch found it. The sketch was called What's Poppin'. It's got Kenan Thompson and Jay Pharoah as MTV VJs on a hip-hop show, and they've mistakenly booked this week's host, Lena Dunham, Cecily Strong, and Aidy Bryant, who are all dressed like Janice, and Mike O'Brien, who's dressed as her drummer. They do embarrassing scat rap stuff, while Kenan does his King of the Reaction Shot thing.
This is an example of great rap. Great rap.
I cannot explain how strange it is to have a person you know parodied on national television. It's like a stranger telling an inside joke you thought only you knew. Like how those damn Daniel kids must have felt. Janice seemed to take it in stride from what I could gather. There's a since-deleted blog post I found back in the day where she joked about it, and she still links to a different post about it on her website. So what makes this cringe? She obviously doesn't take herself too seriously. Are we the real cringe for assuming we're so cool that seeing her unbridled awkwardness makes us uncomfortable? Frankly, no, I don't think so. Once again, I gotta go back to Honky Tonk Bud. It feels lived in because it is lived in, and Skat Rap Counterpoint feels unnatural. I get it. She's a modern avant-garde musical artist. She wanted to do an avant-garde experiment with a modern musical form. But to quote Jurassic Park...
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Hip-hop was not created with everyone's voice in mind. I realized that Debbie Harry recorded the first rap song to ever hit #1, but she was also notoriously terrible at it.
And you don't stop, you keep on eating cars.
Since the Beastie Boys, the recording industry keeps trying to make white rappers happen, but aside from Eminem, they all fizzle out. That is not to say that there are no good white rappers, but to highlight the near unattainable amount of credibility needed to find acceptance as a white rapper. One day I promise I will explain why hip-hop being somewhat impenetrable to so many white performers is a part of black music's evolution, but that's a long-ass story worthy of its own video. So I'll end with this. Sometimes there's a fine line between confidence and entitlement, but I think the key differences are that confidence is in one's element and self-aware, while entitlement is decidedly out of one's element and inevitably leads to a lack of self-awareness. I think that lack of self-awareness is at the heart of all cringe. The SNL sketch plays up the flute solo as if to say, lol, flute solos don't belong in hip-hop, but if you meet hip-hop where it's at, instead of trying to bend it to your will, a flute solo is so appropriate that no one would even notice. Remember Dina, the hip-hop lady?
Hey, I'm Dina. Look at my feet. My feet are straight ahead. You don't want to do that. You want to turn your feet out, and I'm going to do this backwards. And that's what makes it look like hip-hop.
Turn that chair around and sit on it backwards. You know why? Because that's hip-hop.
Right. I got it.
I think Janice might have pulled a Dina, but made it jazz. Janice has performed Skat Rap Counterpoint as recently as January 2020 at Chicago's Green Mill Lounge, so, you know, she got that in before the world completely fell apart. Dina's still going too, repping Christ to the fullest, according to her Twitter. This one goes out to Janice especially, and all the wonderful instructors I had throughout college. I want to thank my patrons. I'm back in the gym. I'm eating better. Thanks to all of you. My weight's getting back up, and I feel that much more like a person, so thank you. I got a lot of stuff in the works, but the scripts are getting long again, so I just wanted to deliver a full video to you guys apart from the shorts. Thank you for making this happen. I'm still far from self-sufficient, but I'm working on something that'll hopefully change that, and I can't wait to tell you about it, either way things go. In the meantime, I still need help, so share my stuff, comment, like, all that. Still looking for writing and research work, so let me know what you got. I really appreciate everyone trying to help, and I really want to do right by all of you and make you all proud. Thanks for watching. If you want to help, join the Patreon or send a donation to